Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? But with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers, a network of 130 million of them, in fact. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, and did I say job title? See how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
Again, it's about knowing your market and what your market's interested in and where people want to connect with you. So for us in Rochester, webinars have been a great way to do that. Other markets, it's not been as popular. So we have a lot of data, and we use that to kind of try to learn what people want from us and what they want from other companies in our regions, and try to help make connections.
This is Small Press Big Ideas, a podcast about the business of local news in the United States. I'm your host, Paul Gewertz. Small Press Big Ideas is about the opportunities and challenges that local news publishers are facing for their businesses. I'll sit down and talk with journalists, entrepreneurs, nonprofit leaders, and more in the local news industry to find out what's working, what isn't, and how the local news ecosystem can innovate and flourish in the 21st century. Today on the podcast, I'm joined by Ben Jacobs from BridgeTower Media. I think I connected with him on LinkedIn. Looks like he's doing some cool stuff and invited him on the show. Ben, thank you for joining me today. Nice to meet you.
Thank you, Paul. Thanks for inviting me, and nice to meet you as well.
Yeah. So I kind of usually start this podcast, like I was just telling you, hearing people's stories. So I'd love to hear your background and also just kind of your story specifically in local media, local news, and just kind of, how you've come to where you are now.
Yeah, so I've worked in local media for about 25 years now, which sounds like a long time when I say it like that.
Yeah, I hate it when you say something out loud and it's like, oof. I feel the same way. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
So I was still in college, and I was working part-time at the daily newspaper in Rochester, New York, just kind of helping out in the sports department, taking high school phone calls and things like that, and then kind of progressed from there to being a full-time high school sports reporter, and then sports copy editor / reporter. And then I'd moved away from Rochester for a couple jobs, and then moved back to Rochester to be a copy editor, kind of moving away from sports and more just kind of a universal copy editor, doing a variety of different things. And then after a few years of that, moved into the management side on the copy desk and started to kind of have to lead people, and did that for a while in a few different kinds of roles and responsibilities back at that same daily in Rochester that I'd started at. And in 2016, I left that publication, and toward the end of the year, joined BridgeTower Media, first as the editor of a small legal paper in Rochester called The Daily Record. And then the next year also took over the Rochester Business Journal, which is a business publication in Rochester. So BridgeTower has two publications in Rochester that I I'm editor and associate publisher of both, and we have publications across the country, all B2B publications, about 40 plus brands total, doing a variety of types of work. Some of them are regional, some of them are statewide, some of them are industry specific. All have kind of different goals, but we all focus on niche business to business content that is unique and of high value to readers and advertisers. And kind of making those connections between companies who can, help each other through using us as the kind of connector.
Awesome. Yeah, and I was actually going to ask about BridgeTower. I almost keep saying Bridgewater, which I don't want to confuse you guys with BridgeTower Media. That's interesting, and I actually had kind of a question about that, because I know you said you have 40 B2B publications, and I'm curious, it sounds like you're just in charge of, I forget the two you said, they're in New York.
So I'm directly in charge of the two, the Rochester Business Journal and the New York Daily Record.
Okay.
And then I'm also kind of oversee the rest of the business publications in what we call our East Group, which is business publications in Maryland, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Long Island, and South Carolina.
Okay. And they're mostly business journals and the like, or something similar?
Yeah, the ones I oversee are mostly business journals. We have some legal journals, some construction journals. Those are all kind of geographically targeted audiences. And then we have a home furnishings division, which is national and even international audience, all focused on the home furnishings industry.
Yeah. Take a step back for just a second. When you were just saying that you kind of, you're the editor for those two, and then you kind of oversee the other ones. I'm curious because, you kind of just gave us your background coming up as, it's funny, I've had a few people on recently with a background in like sports or high school sports reporting that have kind of risen through the ranks. It's just interesting. It's been like a trend lately. But so moving from like, moving up the ranks and from like editor, reporter roles, and now you oversee teams of other people doing that. The audience of this podcast is, professionals in the local media space. I'm curious if you have any insights in your experience on moving from, being just a publisher, an editor, a reporter to, it's basically a different skill set is managing teams of other people and other publications. So, I thought that could be of some value to some folks listening. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a completely different skill set. And, my background for a long time was writing and editing. And that's today a very small percentage of what I do day to day.
Right.
I'm much more involved in leading people and processes and planning and strategy. And it's kind of a fairly natural progression when you move first into management and then start to work your way up the ranks in management. You start to kind of move away from the day-to-day things that you used to do and more into leadership and strategy. But the funny thing is you frequently don't get a lot of training about how to do that as you're making those moves. Most companies, some are very good at it, but most companies don't have like specific training as they move people into a leadership role or specific training on how to be strategic. So I found it very beneficial in my career that I did some specific programs that helped me develop some of those skills. One of them was Leadership Rochester, which there's a similar program in almost every major city. And then after that, I went back to school for my executive MBA, which was immediately helpful and kind of developing some leadership and strategy skills, shoring up some of my financial skills to help with budgeting and things like that. And then our company does offer a leadership program that I went through. I think there's often a big learning curve when you move into leadership roles because there's not immediate training that goes along with that move for most companies. So if you're in a company that has that training, that's great. And that's going to help make it a smoother transition as you move into leadership and move up in leadership. But if you don't have that within your company, you should seek it out elsewhere.
Yeah, I've always been shocked. Like my business is kind of growing now, and I'm bringing some folks on, and I'm like, oh wait, this is like a completely different thing of when I was just kind of doing everything myself. That's why I just kind of want to get that takeaway, and somebody in the industry. You had talked about something before also that I kind of have my notes. Most of the ones you oversee are kind of geographically targeted business audiences, but then you have like I think you said a home. I forget how you framed it.
Home furnishings.
Yeah, home furnishings kind of sector. I'm not sure how much you work with like those other sectors at BridgeTower, but I'm curious on any thoughts or insights you've seen of serving different, because this is about local media like this show. Differences in like, say like, I haven't had anybody on from an industry kind of publication. Any similarities or differences in serving those kind of audiences? And I'm not sure how much you see of those other audiences, so it might not be applicable, but does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't interact directly with the home furnishings division, but I do connect with their kind of the editorial person who's in charge of those publications. So we talk, and we have an editorial committee at BridgeTower that we're both on, and where we talk about kind of editorial challenges and opportunities throughout the company. So I have a sense of what they do and how it differs in some ways from what some of the other brands do. And I think for most of the brands in BridgeTower, the ones that are geographically focused, you really need to know your region and what's important to your region, and then the key players within that region and the key industries and how it all interacts, whether it's just a city like Rochester or a state. You just need to have a really clear picture on what's important in the area you're covering. For the industry publications, they don't have a specific area necessarily, although a lot of the home furnishings a lot of the U.S. home furnishings companies are in the Carolinas, so they all tend to be the employees are all kind of centered around there. But there's people interested in their content across the country and internationally because it is a really international industry. That the tariffs has been a much bigger story,
right? I would
for
imagine
the division than for some of the other groups because some of the local publications, not the tariffs don't matter, but it's not as major,
right,
as it is for home furnishings, where they're getting all of their stuff overseas, and it's a really big impact. And they've done a ton of reporting on that because when you're covering an industry, you just really need to know everything that's important to that industry wherever it's happening. So you can keep all the people who come to you for information apprised of what they need to know to keep their business running smoothly. And what they're really doing is they're connecting home furnishings retailers and other kind of outlets for home furnishings with the manufacturers and suppliers, and making those connections between companies that are importing, exporting products and kind of selling between companies, and then companies that are trying to sell to consumers.
AI is incredible. It can teach you how to fry an egg and even write a poem, pirate style. Yarr! But it knows nothing about your work. Slackbot is different. It doesn't just know the facts, it knows your schedule. It can turn a brainstorm into a brief, and it doesn't need to be taught. Because Slackbot isn't just another AI, it's AI that knows your work as well as you do. Visit slack.com/meet Slackbot to learn more.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was just curious on some kind of differences there. That's it's funny. There's so many. I think I've heard so much about the world, and then like you have just randomly all the home furnishings industries in the Carolinas. I just like, it's something I never knew. It's interesting. So I lost my notes. Sorry. I kind of have an obligatory AI question because obviously it takes up too much of our brain space all the time, but I have to ask it on this podcast. I mean, it's a big topic, but so AI is kind of a wave coming for all sectors, especially media companies. I'd just love to hear your overall thoughts on AI and if you and your team are using any tools. That could mean, anything from back office speeding things up. Most people I talk to are pretty afraid, or not afraid, or opposed to using it to actually write the content and stuff, for your audiences. But just curious on any takeaways of what you're thinking and what you're seeing and using.
Yeah. So I think for media, it's AI is, you really think about it on two fronts. One is how can you use it to try to improve what you do, whether it's just finding efficiencies or actually using it for content. And then also how can you defend against it, what AI is doing to search? Because search traffic has, since the internet became a player in media, search traffic has been a huge part of media websites. And AI is seriously affecting that. Google's AI overview,
Yep.
people are just taking that summary and not clicking on links as much as they used to. So it's really kind of fundamentally shifting the game in terms of digital traffic, how you get it, how you try to continue to keep your search results up, or if you decide that, if you're really a subscription-based model, locally focused, have a paywall, maybe you decide that search isn't worth fighting for, and you need to focus just more on getting your subscribers to engage with you more and developing more subscribers. And if you get some search, fine, but you're not going to spend a lot of effort on it because those aren't the people you're trying to connect with the businesses in your area anyway. That's a decision that I think every media outlet has to make on their own, is how much do they care about search, and how much effort are they going to put into trying to retain whatever they can in the face of what AI is doing. And that's a tough equation to figure out. The other side is experimenting with AI and figuring out how you can use it, what your organization's comfortable with, and where you think you can find some benefits. We are using it, and I wouldn't say we're using it a huge amount. I think a lot of people in our company are using it to find efficiencies, do some brainstorming so that you have a starting point and aren't researching something from zero. We are using it a little bit for content in a very specific way, where basically, we do a number of event recognition programs where we write profiles of people who win our various awards, and all these people fill out applications as part of that process. And so we've found some success of being able to feed those applications into AI with very specific prompts and say, please give us a profile based on this application and don't use anything else.
Right.
And that's worked out pretty well. And we're clear about, we write a disclaimer in all of the publications, the awards publications, that's how it's been done, and that they're fact checked afterward. But that does save us some time on the front end getting them done, because AI can just spit them out in seconds, and we have to check them, but it takes less time to run it through AI and then check it than it does to write it yourself.
Yeah, there's some, like, I would never have it write like a full article or something like that, but some things, like,
Right.
sometimes I cannot come up with like a headline for a podcast episode or something, and it's surprisingly good at coming up with some kind of clever stuff just to get you kind of started. I had some,
Yeah, it's very good at rewording things and
yeah,
summarizing things.
yeah,
And even if you don't use a suggestion, it might spark an idea.
yes, mm-hmm, yeah, and yeah, I just had somebody else on from, I think, another business journal, and he was saying, yeah, he's like, I don't know the last time I was refreshed on SEO, and so he just has it also like, help me reformat this for SEO, just like little things like that and stuff.
Yeah.
You mentioned search, and AI overviews have become as a consumer, the AI overviews, I remember when they first came up, I was kind of irritated. I'm like, what is this? I never asked for this. And now, like, over time, I'm like, oh, okay. A lot of times it answers my question for, not necessarily local news and information or whatever. But you talked, I was taking a huge chunk out of search, which is, everybody listening to this probably knows that. Like your publications and BridgeTower at large, are they primarily just digital? Do you have any other formats? Do you do newsletters? Do you do, I'm blanking. Or any other revenue drivers too? Do you do events? Do you podcasts? Any other stuff like that? Or is it just a
Yeah. So
print? Yeah. Sorry.
we almost all of our brands do print. They all have websites, obviously. We all do e-newsletters. So those are definitely probably the main ways that our content is consumed by our readers. We're all on social. That's, makes a difference. It's not as big as our e-newsletters drive more traffic than social.
Right.
I'm sure you probably see the same thing. We do a lot of events. That's a big focus for us. Before COVID, that was our fastest growing area of our company. And then obviously COVID upended that a little bit. And it took some time to figure out when to go back in person and which events and how it would look after COVID. But it's still a huge part of what we do in Rochester. My brands do 12 to 14 in-person events a year. Some brands do webinars. In Rochester, we do about one a month. Some brands do a little less than that, but it's about knowing your market and what your market's interested in and where people want to connect with you. So for us in Rochester, webinars have been a great way to do that. Other markets, it's not been as popular. So some markets have tried to do more of their thought leadership in person because that market just prefers that. So we have a lot of different ways that we can connect with readers and with our communities in general. We have a lot of data, and we use that to kind of try to learn what people want from us and what they want from other companies in our regions, and try to help make connections that way. We really, I think, feel at BridgeTower like the key of what we do is combining our data and our insights and our connectivity and using that to really move the needle, not just for us, but for the businesses in our communities to learn from us and to learn from each other and meet with each other to help, everybody grow ideally.
That's great. I was curious on the webinars you just brought up. I have not really heard that from many other folks. Could I dig into that just a little bit? Just to help me understand. So is it like a community building thing? Is it like a sponsored thing from like a partner that puts it on? Like who's giving the webinar to who, and how's that like structured and stuff? I haven't really heard much of that.
Yeah, so we do sell sponsorships for the webinar in Rochester, and the company gets their logo on marketing for the webinar and gets thanked in the webinar, and they also then get a panelist on the webinar as part of that. So really, I moderate all the webinars in Rochester, and then they're all based on a specific topic. We did one last month on senior and elder care planning. So we had an elder law lawyer. We had somebody who worked at a nursing home. We have somebody who worked at an elder services agency, kind of talking about key issues in the elder care space. And then, we had attendees who, some of them might be working in elder care. Some of them might have family members
Right.
who are having elder care needs. Some of them might be businesses who interact with elder care services, and they just want to learn from these people who we had as our panelists.
Cool. Yeah, I just wanted to, I hadn't heard that exact. I mean, it's kind of like, an online version of a lot of the events that I hear from other folks and everything, but that's just, that's interesting. That kind of lean, a way to get something like that going, get some sponsorships going. Okay, so I've been asking this to everybody lately, and it's also kind of a big question, is flash forward 5 years, just what are your hopes and predictions for yourself and BridgeTower? And then also, if you want, just the local media industry at large in, say, 2030.
Yeah. So sadly, flash forward 5 years, I think the local media landscape is going to be smaller. I think 5 years from now, we will have significantly fewer local media outlets than we do today. I mean, that's just been the trend recently. Local media outlets have been disappearing faster than they've been appearing. So, you hear about news deserts. There's going to be more of those in 5 years. I think that's just the unfortunate reality of where we are in society, and with the internet and AI, is going to make it harder for some of those small, very local outlets to stay afloat. My hope for BridgeTower is that we could continue to perform our digital transformation, grow digitally, continue to succeed with our events. And we know print is not going to grow. We've been maintaining it as best we can. Is print still going to be around in 5 years? Maybe not for all brands. I think some brands probably still will have print. I think the next 5 years, I know people who 20 years ago were saying print would be gone by now. So, well, every generation seems to prefer digital more than the previous generation. So at some point, maintaining print is going to be difficult. Not impossible. I think some brands will still do it, and some people do still like to have the physical copy. But we know we need to keep growing digitally, because print is not where revenue is going to grow. So my hope is that in 5 years, we'll have continued to do that. Our digital model will be really strong, and we'll be able to sustain what we need to do through digital and events. And if we're still doing print, it's just a nice supplement. But that BridgeTower is just kind of a strong digital and events company that maybe has print in certain markets that still makes sense. My hope is that I'll still be with BridgeTower, and whether it's in my current role or in a new role with new responsibilities, I think, it's a strong company. We do good work that's important to our communities that we're in. And I'd like to still be part of that in 5 years.
Yeah, I'm sure you will be. Ben, that's really everything I had for you. This is good. This is nice to meet you, get some insight on BridgeTower and what you guys are doing over there. So selfishly, thank you also. I like just learning about new folks and everything. Where can people find you online? Like, what do you want, or anything you want to promote or want me to link to in the show notes?
The best place to engage with me professionally is on LinkedIn. I'm at B Jacobs ROCH there. That's kind of where I, aside from the BridgeTower properties that I'm involved with, that's where I interact professionally the most. BridgeTowerMedia.com is our company's website that then also has links to all of our different brands. So people can go to BridgeTowerMedia.com to learn more about our company, and then to find the individual websites for our various brands.
Awesome. I'll link to all that. And if there's anything else that came up when we were talking, when I'm editing this, I'll stick that in there too. Very cool, Ben. Nice to meet you. Thanks for being here today, and hope you have a great rest of your day.
It was great to meet you as well. Thank you for inviting me on.
Yep.
It was fun chatting with you.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for listening to Small Press Big Ideas. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you'd like to help the show, the best thing you can do is to tell a friend or colleague, and just take a few minutes to leave a rating and a review on whatever platform you're listening to right now. It only takes a minute out of your day, but it really does help the podcast grow and reach more ears. Check back for new episodes every Monday.